Hi guys, my name is Emma Davidson. It's March 3rd, and I am doing this for my drugs and behavior class. I made an outline for Chapter 5, The Actions of Drugs, for pages 97 to 101. So to start off, the sources and names of drugs. In the first section, sources of drugs, I took note of most drugs used 50 years ago came from plants. And why do plants produce so many drugs? It's a genetic mutation occurred in a plant so that one of its normal biochemical processes was changed and a new chemical was made. It makes plants dangerous to be eaten by animals, making it last longer and produce more of its kind, which caused them to spread. This process must have occurred thousands of times in various places all over the earth, and many of these plant-produced chemicals have effects on the intestines, muscles, and others alter the brain. In large doses, the effects were very harmful. However, in controlled doses, chemicals might alter the neurochemistry just enough to produce proper outcomes. Medicine men and women were the forerunners of today's pharmacists and physicians. And then today, the legal pharmaceutical industry is one of the largest and most profitable industries in the US. Sales are totaling in at $300 billion a year, and more than half of all prescriptions are filled with only 200 drugs. In the next section, names of drugs, I wrote that commercially available compounds have many names. There's brand, generic, and chemical. To define them, chemical names give a complete chemical description of the molecule and is derived from the rules of organic chemistry. They're rarely used except for in labs. The generic names can be defined as are the official and legal names of drugs and are listed in the USP. Generic names are usually shorter and much more simple. For example, amphetamines used in several meds to help with ADHD. And then the brand name can be defined as the names of drugs that specify particular formulation and manufacturer, and the trademark belongs to the manufacturer. Usually simple and as meaningful as the company can make it. Example, the name for Adderall, which is a combo of amphetamine and dextroamphetamine, was chosen for ADHD drugs to tell patients it will help them be more attentive and alert. In the next section, there's categories of drugs. So physicians, pharmacologists, chemists, lawyers, psychologists, and users of drugs classification schemes that best serve their own purposes. A drug like amphetamine might be categorized as a weight control aid by a physician because it reduces food cravings. The scheme presented organizes the drugs by their name and effects. For example, psychoactive drugs. In the book, it gave a huge chart, and I wrote them all down. So for stimulants, they gave examples of cocaine, amphetamine, and caffeine. Nicotine was its own section. Psychotherapeutics like Cymbalta and Abilify. Opioids are considered morphine, codeine, heroin, and oxycodone, which I'm sure everyone has heard before. There are depressants such as alcohol, benzodiazepine, sleeping pills, and inhalants, cannabinoids, cannabis, delta-9, THC, CBD, and Naveline. And then finally, they gave the category of hallucinogens, which LSD, psilocybin, and ayahuasca are all fall under those. At moderate doses, stimulant drugs produce wakefulness and a sense of energy and well-being. Large doses of this drug can cause manic tendencies of overexcitement and hallucinations. Depressant drugs at low doses appear to depress inhibitory parts of the brain, leading to disinhibition or relaxation and talkativeness that can give way to recklessness. As the dose increase, the other neural functions become depressed, leading to slowed reaction times, bad movements, and unconsciousness. Stimulants and depressants don't entirely counteract one another. Opioids are a group of pain-killing drugs that produce a relaxed, dream-like state. Moderately high doses induce sleep, and this group is called narcotics. Must be distinguished from, what are considered downers, which are the depressants. The hallucinogens produce altered perceptions, including unusual visual sensations and changes perceptions of one's own body. The psychotherapeutic drugs include a variety of drugs prescribed by psychiatrists for the control of mental problems, like antipsychotics. Nicotine and cannabis are two drugs that just don't fit in any classes, so that's why they were put into their own. Moving forward, the physician's desk reference, the PDR to shorten it, I defined it, has produced color photographs of many of the legally manufactured pharmaceuticals. Police chemistry labs also use the PDR. Even illicit drugs can be seen through visual appearance. The makers of illicit tablets containing amphetamines such as MDMA mark them in a consistent way so that they can't be recognized by their buyer, so that they can be recognized by their buyers. If a case of illicit drugs is to be prosecuted in court, the prosecution will usually be expected to present the testimony if a chemist indicating that the drug had been tested using specific chemical analysis. Into the next section, drug effects. It started to explain non-specific, aka placebo effects. So under that, I took note of no matter what the drug is, it can't have any effect until it is taken. The effects of a drug do not depend solely on chemical interactions with the body's tissue. Psychoactive drugs in particular, the influences of expectancy, experience, and setting are also important determinants of the drug's effect. A good trip or a bad trip on LSD is highly dependent on the experiences and the mood of the user before taking the drug. Non-specific effects of a drug are those that derive from the user's unique background and particular perception of the world, also sometimes called placebo effects because they can often be produced by an inactive chemical that users believe to be a drug. So it's all in the mind. The effects of a drug that depend on the presence of the chemical at a certain concentration in the target issue are called specific effects. And then I went on to define placebo, which is an inactive drug, like I said before. And then I defined double-blind procedure, which is an experiment in which neither the doctor nor the patient knows which drug is being used. I felt both of those were important to note. So yeah, that is my outline for chapter 5. And I hope this was helpful. So thanks, guys.